first, we want to hope that you and your family are very well during this time, that you continue to be safe, and that you continue to strive and achieve your dreams. So, why are we here today? We are here to celebrate and honor Pompano's own, the amazing Esther Rolle. This year would have been her centennial birthday, meaning she's turning the big 100th this year. And we just wanted to make sure we were doing something special to honor the legacy she's left here in our beautiful city of Pompano. And to do that with us today, we have a very, very special guest. This is also an honor and a privilege. I'm sure most of you know her, have seen her, have felt connected to her in some way or another. But today we are having a conversation about Esther with Miss BernNadette Stanis. How are you?
Hello. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So it's only right that I give space before we dive into this interview, just to make people familiar, more familiar with who you are.
Okay. I played Thelma on Good Times with Miss Esther Rolle. I've also done some books. I have 3 books. One called Situations 101 Relationships, one called Situations 101 Finances, and one called The Last Night in honor of my mother who had Alzheimer's. I'm also a painter and a mom.
Oh, a painter. I
Yes.
didn't know you were a painter. I was just going to ask, that's your work?
I just made it into different months. Like, can you see them?
I can see a portion of it.
I
Okay,
didn't
now
do
I can see it.
December. I did July, August, September, October, November, and I didn't finish December. So I'm like,
Oh, wow. That's great. I love the colors. I was looking at that when you logged in. I was like, oh, this is a good color. I love pops of color. You can't really see it, but I have my yellow shirt on and my Zora Hurston pen. She has a pop of green in her.
oh,
So I appreciate the coloring. And you're also a poet, right?
yes, yes.
Awesome. We share that in common. I absolutely love poetry.
Yes.
It has really benefited me in my journey and journaling and getting through some things. So it's really near and dear to my heart, and I hope it is to yours as well.
Yes, yes, it is.
Awesome. All
It,
right.
it gives you an out, when you want to write something, it just gives you an out to say what you feel in a condensed way. It's just,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got into some competition poetry over the last few years where hundreds of poets come together and they do a competition. And so that has been an amazing journey. It's more spoken word performance poetry, but it's always a great time. So yeah. So we're going to get into the interview. And I refrained from sending you questions. I sometimes send them, but I am a kind of go with the energy in a room kind of interviewer. So I like people to be as candid as possible and as comfortable as possible without feeling like they had to rehearse something. So with that being said, I think we're going to shortly just talk about 3 parts. We're going to talk about your time on the set at Good Times and Miss Rolle's work ethic and how that was. We're going to talk about your personal relationship with her. Then we're going to talk about how knowing her made you better. Okay? All right. So let's get started. Part 1 with Miss BernNadette, Miss Thelma of Good Times. Let's talk about Good Times. How was it on the set with Esther?
Well, it was amazing because it was my really first professional show. And so I watched her a lot, and I watched how, she did things. She embraced me like the moment I walked into the rehearsal hall for the first time. And I'm so glad she did. And I embraced her, and I called her mom all the time because she was my Hollywood mom. And there were some things that she just sat me down and said, these are the things you should do. These are the things you shouldn't do. And so she kind of guided me, right in, being a young person, you don't know the boundaries. You don't know what things are. So, she definitely set it up and said, this is what you do. This is what you don't do.
She seems like the more I learn about her, the more I am realizing she was that type of person. Okay. And if I can be honest, I am falling incredibly in love with who she was, because the more stories I hear about her, she was incredible,
She was. She was,
especially for that time.
yes, very aware of everything around her. She was who she was, no matter what, you know.
Mm.
Um, she helped every one of us. She was a very giving person. She was a very loving person. Although she would just look at you and do this, I understood her. You know, like after rehearsal, I would say to her all the time, "Okay, Mom, what are you cooking for dinner? Because I'm coming over." And she, if you don't go home somewhere, she say it to me all the time. I was, I'm going home with you. So, but it was very interesting because in the beginning, she and I lived like right around the corner from each other.
Okay.
So I couldn't go, like I couldn't drive then. And so she used to pick me up. This is one of the lessons that I learned from her. She used to drive by and pick me up. I'm supposed to be ready at 9 o'clock. Well, this is a lesson I had to learn. I would always seem to be a minute late, 2 minutes late. Then it went to 5 minutes. Then it went to 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God. And then one day I got in the car and Esther said to me, she said, late one more time and I'm going to leave you. Like, you're not going to leave me? Mom, you know you're not going to leave me. And I played with her like that. She said, mm-hmm. And so, you know how when you try so hard to do something and then everything seems to get in your way? Well, this next day I was breaking my neck to run down them stairs to be there at 9 o'clock and I missed it. I got there like at 9:03 and she was gone. She left me standing there. And back then in those days, you couldn't get cabs and stuff like that. I didn't, supposed to be working at 9:30. I didn't get to work till like 1.
Wow.
And she just looked at me like, I looked at her trying to be mad. I looked at her like, and she said, mm-hmm. Okay.
Uh-huh.
That was a lesson I learned. I was always 5-10 minutes earlier waiting on her.
After that day,
Yeah.
she definitely seems like she is a mean what you say kind of woman.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of speaking with Miss Adela, just to mention, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
And it was during that time that I realized this woman was amazing. And she spoke to how you were, I think she said 14 at the time, and how Esther and she just kind of gravitated to you. And she basically said the same thing about her. She was very aware and she was very unapologetic. And to know me is to know I'm pretty unapologetic myself. But it, but it's a very scary road to navigate, especially if you're being unapologetically Black, which is from everybody who's speaking to me. It's what she was, from demanding a Black wardrobe person to demanding a Black hairdresser, demanding a Black makeup artist when that was not the protocol. I was amazed, and to hear her speak about how if they travel together and they would try to separate them, she's in a presidential and they're in like some other floor. And Miss Adela said, she said, they're not my help. They're my travel companions.
Yeah.
So yes, that was very interesting conversation about her. And I think it came across as we got to watch Good Times. We kind of knew she didn't play the radio.
No, she didn't play around. And you know, being the first Black show, family show on television, when I say family, there were other shows like Julia and Sanford and Son and things like that.
Yes.
But the whole family, and it was Esther Rolle who demanded that she have a husband because the show was supposed to be without a husband.
Got it.
And she said, oh no, we're going to have a husband, you know. And Leah really liked her, you know, and admired her. And so he gave her a husband. So she fought for that. You know, she fought for that. She fought for every one of us at different times on the show.
Wow, that's incredible. So wrapping up this portion, I know you learned the lesson about not being late.
Yeah.
Tell me one other lesson you learned from her in her work ethic.
Okay. Well, this is not really a lesson. This is something that she came forward and helped me to get. This is what happened. One day I was at her house as usual, and we were doing running our lines. And I only had in the beginning kind of like hi, Mom, hi, Dad. Shut up, JJ. And I was always in the bathroom, right? Always in the mirror of the bathroom. So you wouldn't see me a lot. I'm just walking through doing nothing, actually. So I went into it about 6 months, maybe 9 months into the show. And I said, Mom, because this is really true. I was so bored that week. I was so bored. It was nothing to do. I mean, I'm still getting my check and everything, but that's not what I want. So I said, Mom, I said, I need more to say. I need more to do because this is boring, And she's like, you need more to say, huh? Yeah. So she said, okay, let me handle it. So, and table read the next week. It was Friday. And after we read the whole show, of course, I had my 5 or 6 lines. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Shut up, JJ. Back in the bathroom. She said, everybody's there, the producers, the writers, everybody. And she said, I want to ask a question. I knew it was coming. So she said, I just want to ask a question. They said, oh, sure, Esther. What do you want to ask? So she looked at the producers and the writers. She said, tell me, are you ashamed of my daughter? And they looked, no, I'm not ashamed of her. So she said, well, is she retarded? say no, because, And then I'm like, oh gosh, she done went over the top. So then at the end of that, she said, I want her to go up to the office, sit with you guys, and I want her to tell you who Thelma is.
Character development.
Huh?
Character development.
Right. Well, I was very much like that character because I came from Brownsville, Brooklyn.
Okay.
And I was in the projects. And my mother and father had 5 children. So I knew I was the oldest, I am the oldest. So I'm just saying, I knew her. I wanted her to be a young girl that was smart, that was a good girl back in those days, we call it good girls,
Uh-huh.
And I wanted her to have ambition. No matter what was going on, I wanted her to have ambition because that's kind of like what I had when I was in the projects, Yes. I would look outside and I would say, oh my God, am I going to be here forever? And my mom always pushed us to do more, to do what we had to do. I studied at Juilliard. I did study at Juilliard acting. So I was ready for the show. But it was so beautiful to have had a woman like Esther to just come to bat. It's like, nah. She said this. She said, my son JJ has a lot to say. My son Michael has a lot to say. And I want my daughter to have a voice too.
Isn't that amazing? That's incredible. I'm telling you, I was just telling someone I saw on Facebook, you see all kind of things on Facebook these days.
Yeah, you do.
But I saw where it seemed that the women finding the voices have caused a rift, right, within our communities, because for so long we've been told to be seen and not heard. And that's what, in the beginning, Thelma was. She very rarely seen. You were beautiful, are beautiful. And so I think that was important for her to do. And that, never know how that paved the way for women to have a voice in a room full of men.
Right, because I was always an opinionated personality. And that is because my father was born in Brooklyn, but he was reared in the West Indies. So you see that West Indian, and he made us go to school. There was no excuses. There was none of that stuff. So, and my mother is from Louisiana, so she was the soft touch, you know what I'm saying? So we had a good balance.
A nice balance.
Yes, a nice balance. But I was always like feisty, I always had my opinion. And that's because my mother was very shy. And she hated being shy. So she would always make us go out. She would say, they can't hear you. You have to speak up. Or they don't know you have talent unless you show it. Now she's...
Please tell me the balances between your mother and your father in the comments.
The shy one. She would never do it, but she pushed us. So I did most of my stuff for her.
Awesome. Well, that is a great segue into our next topic of discussion here. How was she personally, in your personal lives? And I'm hearing she was the same person, but the softer moments, the moment where you realize, I love her, and I don't care who knows it.
Well, everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. You could ask Jimmy Walker. Yeah, that's her girl. That's it. All of them, they knew it. I loved Esther from the moment I saw her.
Mm.
She was a very kind, inviting, loving woman. You know, she had high standards. You know, she was just, regal. And I admired that in her, and I followed her footsteps. I tried to be just like her because, I saw the respect that she got. I saw who she was and the knowledge that she had. I mean, this woman was so well read. I mean, you can talk about anything.
Mm.
She was ready. She was ready.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think we read enough now. It's like so quick. We read like little articles or periodicals or Facebook things, but we rarely are reading anymore. And
I try to keep that going.
yes, how do we, I mean, how do we do it in a generation where technology is at the forefront? So if you are reading, rarely is it a physical book anymore. How do we encourage that amongst most, our youth and even our adult population?
Well, you just tell them to turn that off, and here's a book, and I want you to read it, because what it's doing is making us look at life in little snippets. Like people don't read and gain the whole scope. They get little snippets. And from what I understand about the internet and stuff like that, they watch everything you do. So if you're the type of person that likes to watch designing or whatever, well, they'll gear everything with designing to you. So literally, everybody that's on the internet has a different reality.
Wow.
And that's dangerous.
That is dangerous. I was just speaking to, I forgot who I was talking to. We were talking about how it filters your timeline. Even from the people who you communicate the most with on Facebook, that's whose posts you're going to see versus somebody who haven't spoken to in years per se. But I've never thought about it as everybody having their own reality. That's a game changer to realize that, because realizing that is how you get to building this bridge of missing communication that generally happens. That is a great perspective and a great way to put that, because yeah.
Because you can read something, you can say, well, I'm gonna look up this, and you'll read something that's different than what I would read, or maybe someone else would read. It'll gear to what you would really like, so that you could like it, and keep going. So that's why we're all becoming individualists, and we don't know what's going on. It's just like everybody has their own reality,
Wow, that's cool. So tell me, Esther never had any children.
No, I was her daughter.
I was gonna say, do you think her relationship with you developed as it was because of that? Or not because of it, but inclusive?
No, I just made sure she was going to have a daughter. I said, I'm going to be your daughter, your real daughter, so she would just laugh and carry on. But we became real like mother and daughter. And I even remember the last days of her life. Someone had called me and said, because I hadn't seen her in about a year. And someone had called me and said, she doesn't look so good. She looks kind of, frail. So I said, what? So I went and I called her, and I came over to her house. At that time, my little girl was very, very little. And she met Brittany. And I used to take her to the doctor every Tuesday. So we got, even God blessed me at the end of her life, I was still there. Just like I was there for my mother and my dad. So, I mean, that's to me a blessing, because those are the people that I loved, So Esther would, I would drive her, me and little Brittany would just drive her to her doctor's office, and we drive back. Now, she wasn't supposed to be eating that soul food, but on the way home, she said, stop right over there. I said, Mom, you're not supposed to eat that. She said, stop right over there. And I eat all the soul food. She'd eat all she want. It was too cute. And then it was in November that I had to go to the Bahamas, not the Bahamas, I had to go to St. Thomas to do a show. So that Tuesday, I dropped her off, and I said, Mom, I'm gonna go and do the show, whatever happened to Black Love, I'm gonna be doing that in St. Thomas, and I'm going to be back by next week. I said, but Adela can take you to the doctor. You know, you need to go. So she looked at me and she said, she said, okay. And then she looked at me and she said, you know, I want to thank you for being my daughter. And I said, oh, Mom, you know, of course, you know. And she said, I just want to thank you, BernNadette. And it felt eerie, you know. And I'm saying, Mom, yeah, of course. And so then I said, you know what, when I come back, okay, I'll come back on, I think I was supposed to return on the 17th. I said, this is when I return, on November 17th. I said, Mom, when I come back, I'm coming over and I'll make you a big pot of vegetables, okay? So she said, okay. And then she went over, she told Brittany, be a good girl. And I saw her walk to her door. And I said, okay, Mama, see you next week, okay? And so she said, okay, went inside. I drove away. We went to St. Thomas. I flew back on, my father's birthday is November 16th. So I was thinking from, you know, I said, oh man, you know, my dad's birthday yesterday. And so I was flying back home on the 17th. We got back home on that night, at night. And then the next morning I was going to go over to see her. And I woke up to Miss Esther Rolle is dead.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, that's how I found out.
It sounds like she probably knew, you know.
I think she did, and she didn't want to say anything, you know, to me.
To you. Yeah, because I'm finding that a lot when it deals with our elderly and the people who we love, when they're just kind of tired or life has run its course. It seems like they know. And
They do. I think they do. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm just saying.
Okay.
It brings me back to what my mother said to me. She was in the hospital at this time, you know. Unfortunately, she had gone into a facility and she was supposed to just get stronger because she had a feeding tube and they weren't clean, and she caught the C. diff disease. So within 6 months, she was gone. And so she was in the hospital this time. And I said, oh, Mom, you know, because I was in and out doing stuff. And so I said, Mom, how you doing? And we talked. And I would always talk to her about when she was 14 years old, because that's what she remembers the most. You know, Buddy Willis. I remember every time I say Buddy Willis, the big old smile comes on her face, right? So she just said to me that day, she said, Bern, just like that, you know, we all have to take care of ourselves now. You take care of yourself. I said, Mom, yeah. But she didn't go to the end of Alzheimer's. So she could talk to me, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Until they put the track in her throat and she couldn't talk anymore. But I'm just saying they do know. And, you know, she wasn't afraid. She was very brave.
Wow.
Very brave.
And I'm glad you got to experience her before she passed, and she got to say what she needed to say to you, and just kind of be at peace with what was happening at that time. So she seems, I'm telling you, the more I hear about her, even in these last moments, the more I'm like, I really missed something. I feel like I missed out on her.
Yes, and Adela could tell you more stuff because she was a buddy, you know, like grown buddy.
Yes.
You know? I was a kid buddy, that's a grown buddy. So, you know, anytime you want to call Adela, you know, she's available.
Okay.
Yeah, anytime. She really likes.
She said that. She said, day or night, you give me a call. It doesn't matter if you need anything. She loved her so much. She loved her so much.
She loved her.
When she was talking about her, you just heard in her voice how much she loved Esther and how appreciative she was of her for the life she allowed and helped her to live and how she fought for them. So that was really very inspiring to learn about her as well.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you guys are doing this for her.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. You were the first person to come to mind. I had read about how close you two were, and I'm so glad we can make this happen. You've been amazing and cooperative, and we really appreciate it. I know I do. You know, speaking for myself in the department, we really appreciate you being here. So we go into our last portion, which is, how did knowing Esther make you who you are and make you better?
Well, I saw the struggle. I saw the fight. I saw it's hard when you have a group of people who really never really worked with the whole family of Black people before. You know what I'm saying? So we had a lot of Caucasians, that were writing for us.
Mm.
And so there's a certain way we speak. We have a different rhythm.
The vernacular, the
and so that's what Esther was trying to get them to understand. They basically did understand it, but we would have to change a lot of, we don't speak like they speak. They speak very, very proper, which is wonderful. But we're in the ghetto now. We don't speak like that. So we had to change it up for them, and it was kind of cute watching the merge between that world and our world, which is wonderful because they had the real stuff back then. I mean, like people got paid, they got the pensions, they got good salaries.
Mm-hmm.
These days, I think it's quite a different thing for the Black actors. Some of them, there's a few of them that get their good money, but now it's like, we really don't have to pay you. We could just have you, come on. You know what I'm saying? That they feel that it's not like it used to be. Let's just put it that way. It's not like, and I'm glad I was back in those days.
Yeah, that's
I was glad.
Interesting. I'm a huge champion of AAVE, which is African American slang, and it being its own. Because, and the reason I say that, and not that code switching shouldn't be a thing. And are you aware what code switching is?
Code switching?
Yes.
Is that where you're living? They code?
No, that's going from what you're speaking of. So going from Black vernacular to a more acceptable, what would be deemed as a white vernacular. So you code switch in certain situations, in certain rooms. And what you're saying is you're like, no, that's great for this space, or for our space. This is the code switch. This is what you need to do to see us, and to have the people who see us believe us. Because that's what sitcoms back in those days were. They were believable. They made us feel like everybody went through this, even the people on TV. Especially to see yourself in representation, matters. And so I'm a fan of very, very slang and dialect and heavy on the accent of what would be deemed Black vernacular. But when I'm in another space, sometimes you have to code switch. And that's something for our generation where we're talking about, we don't like code switching. So it's like what you say, we don't want to sound like you. We want to sound like us, and for that to matter.
Right. But see, that goes back to seeing like what's going on with all schools now. They have the kids printing instead of writing. And script writing used to represent you were educated. Now, when someone asked me for my autograph and they asked me to print it, I said, that's not an autograph. No. He said, I can't read that. Wrong, big old. So you see where it's going? To me, we're dumbing down. I don't care how much information we're getting. The real stuff of human beings is getting slower.
Oh, it's definitely getting lost in translation.
Yeah,
it's definitely.
We got the GPS, so you don't remember anything. You can't remember numbers anymore because it's all on your phone. It's dangerous. I think it's going to be dangerous for the future. So you just have to make sure that you make your kids do the old-fashioned stuff too.
Miss Adela said the biggest difference she sees in today is that you guys were obedient. Yeah. You listened to what you were told, your wise counsel.
Elders.
Yes, you respected that. And she said for her, that's the biggest thing, that children and people are no longer obedient to anything. Yeah. So that's dangerous.
Well, that's the law now. You can't even correct your kid. They know they can call 911, say child abuse. I mean, it's not. When your parents spank you, that's getting you straight.
How do you think Esther would have fared in this environment?
Oh, no, Anybody would come across her, she'd still be the old-fashioned Esther. You better get that switch. I remember this. This is so funny to tell you a little story. My little daughter, she at the time she was like 4 or 5, and she went. Now she spoke very well, very good English. No, nothing going on. And she has a cousin that's a little older than her, and her cousin has a lisp.
Mm.
My baby came home talking like her cousin. I'm like, wait a minute. I had to work years to fix that. Esther Rolle told me, Bern, she has a little lisp. You better get that straight because the kids are going to tease her when she goes to school.
Mm.
And I start putting, she remembers this, I start putting erasers in her mouth and making her say the word through the eraser.
Okay.
See, that's how you train the enunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's yeah. So she got out of it.
Wow, my 2-year-old has a lisp.
Yeah, well, that's how
he
train him.
he likes to eat things. He's gonna just
he's a baby. He doesn't know yet. So when he gets to be about 5 or 6,
okay.
if you still see the lisp, then what you start doing is you do the speech thing with him. You know, you break it down. Say like this, napkins. You know how they're gonna go napkins. Say napkins. And make them enunciate. They're gonna napkins, and eventually they'll get it.
Sounds good. She said you better get that taken care of. Kids are cruel.
Sure, I take care of it.
That is great. You hit on when she passed and what that meant to you. Did you attend the funeral? I think the whole cast attended, right?
Huh?
I read that the whole cast attended
her.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah, because she was our first member to go, you know? So we honored her. You know, we honored her with that. It was hard. It was hard because, you know, she was so wonderful and she left such a legacy, you know, for the world, you know, and, you know, I don't know why, but, you know, I think that, I don't know what the problem was, maybe diabetes or something like that. But, you know, she did her thing while she was here. She helped everybody, absolutely everybody. Maybe they didn't like her for that, but she said, this is our one shot. We got to get in.
That's very, very important. You got to stay ready so you ain't got to get ready, and you got to take advantage of every opportunity.
Because, you know, it doesn't come back.
It doesn't come back.
Good times there'll never be a show like that again. That was so complete. And you learn the each character. You lived with them. You see, you know, now it's like joke here, hit that. It's not developed well. But that's why I think Good Times lasted 45 years on television.
Wow. And still, I was going to say,
I mean, people watching it now.
Still, people watch it now.
And, you know, they watch it. People say they always watch Good Times because it brings back the times when things were simple, when things were loving, when they were sitting with their mothers or their grandmothers. You know, it brings back home.
Absolutely. I introduced my kids to it. And they see me watching it, and what you watching? Good Times again. JJ. We had the pleasure of having him here for a headline last year, comedy, and the kids were like, "Wait, that's him? That's him?" And I was like, "Yep, that's him." He changed. So when I tell them, he has, and they said he didn't look as tall as he looked on TV.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting to see them, you know, kind of falling. And Good Times is obviously before my time, but I watch it so much it feels like my time, even though it really isn't.
Oh yes, you weren't even born.
Not. Tell my age, why don't you? No, just kidding.
I know you're young.
I said I like to think I got an old soul. Right? I like to think of.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm still young. My best friend is about 12 years older than myself, and she goes, "I forget how young you are sometimes."
Wow.
And I go, "Well, I never forget how old you are, though." She doesn't like that one. So, you were here in Pompano for the ceremony, correct?
Not for that one. No, we have one in Los Angeles.
Okay. Have you been to Pompano? Had you been to Pompano with her at all?
In Florida, I think I passed through it, but I haven't been in there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when things are not so crazy and things settle down, perhaps we can invite you back and
Oh,
show you our beautiful city. She has a street named after her here. She's buried here in our local cemetery, and her house is still there, even though I know they didn't live in it at the time of her death. So we do have some things here, and we welcome you to the city. The more I learn, the more I'm feeling connected to her and the city as well, especially someone being in the arts. She did theater as well.
oh yes.
Right? She did
Yes.
theater as well. I think Miss Adela said, Phenomenal Woman, I think she said she did.
Yes.
She toured a one woman.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's,
Boom. She did that one. And she toured all over because she was such a deep woman. She had so much to say, you know. And it's so funny about poetry, right? She was doing a show with Maya Angelou, and I hadn't met her. And so I said to Esther one day, I said, Mom, I said, because I used to, I used to bug that lady. I used to read all my poetry to her. She was captured. I'm saying, Mom, I wrote another poem. Now listen. And I said, what you think? Very nice, BernNadette, very nice. So then she said to me, I said, Mom, do you think that Maya Angelou would really love my poetry? She said she absolutely would.
Maya came here, it has to be over a decade now, to one of my local libraries. So that was a pleasure of having her here.
Yeah.
That's my thing. I'm born and raised here, and we're just this big, we're just big enough to call home. And so when we get the opportunity to bring people who have roots, not only to Pompano, but to the arts,
Yes.
quality arts, quality people, quality messages, that is what I am all about. Because again, what Thelma was for us was representation of every Black girl from the ghetto with a slick mouth and a brother she don't like half the time.
And I started hitting him first. He hit me. I'm like, oh, you know how to beat him up?
Yes.
That's how I get my real brothers. So,
that was what it was. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. I think any last words you would like to share with our viewers or on Esther before we go?
Well, I would say if you're in the arts, any type of way in being in the arts, find a mentor that can help you, because it does help you to avoid some of the pitfalls in the game, So find a mentor, ask questions, be like me, you know what I mean? She couldn't get rid of me, and I wasn't gonna let her because I felt secure with her.
Right.
So, just find a mentor, and you can ask questions, and they'll readily tell you, if they're a good mentor,
Right. Yeah. Yes, at the mentorship, and I know we're going to have a mentor. She was like, would you be my mentor? I'm like, I'm a little rough around the edges, but I'll give it a shot. And
how they just want to see you and what you do and how you handle certain situations. That's kind of what it is,
Okay, and that's what she said. But she did something and she didn't call me about it until after. And I was like, what do you have me for a mentor for? If you're not going to call me, if you're not going to take advantage of this relationship, if you're not going to, use my knowledge, then why did you ask?
But you know what I learned? The young people today, they don't understand a lot of things like that. They don't understand about cultivating a good relationship. They don't understand. Nobody's really teaching them that. You have to have a mentor. You have to keep up with people. You have to stay connected with the people that are going to help you. But a lot of times these young kids, they get involved in stuff. Oh, I'll call. Yeah, I'll call. No. I'll text. No, you have to take time and spend time. A lot of them just don't do it.
Wow. Yes, that is true. The age of texting. So tell us how we can find you on social media, how we can buy your books, and anything you have coming up soon.
Okay. My Instagram is Thelma of Good Times. My Facebook is BernNadette Stanis, although we have another person on there that acts like he's me. He's not. So look for my little blue dot.
Okay.
But he has a lot of followers because they all thought it was me. So anyway, I have that, and my Instagram, my Twitter is Thelma Good Times. Isn't that weird? Like Thelma Good Times, Thelma Good Times. Okay, but BernNadette Stanis. And I just did a little short called Dreams from the Edge, which was very interesting. You know, it's a good little character. And they're going to take it to the film festivals this year and see if they can get it into a big movie.
Nice.
It's about an actress who her daughter became the actress, and she's a mean mommy. She's not a nice mommy, and she's discouraging her daughter. And she's old now, you know, like she just fell off or whatever. And then her daughter is trying to pull her back, and the daughter gets her back there on stage to do a part and stuff like that. But the whole thing is very, very interesting.
Nice. Yeah. Hopefully we'll be seeing it soon. Yeah. And good luck in the film festivals. And how can we purchase your books?
Oh, the books. You can get my books at my website, thelmaofgoodtimes.com.
All right, thelmaofgoodtimes.com, guys. Get over there, get the books. I am going to, I know at the start of this conversation, we talked about the book to your mom. I don't know what that's like, but I think we're going to pick it up because you can learn a lesson in anything, even if you have not personally been through it. So for you who are watching out there, make sure you visit her on her website, grab some books. Christmas is coming up. Great gifts to encourage reading.
And the last night is about my life story, a semi version of my life story. So you'll get a lot of information out of there about me.
Well, there it is. Miss Thelma, Miss BernNadette Stanis, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
Showing tribute to someone will always be an honorable thing. This video raises questions and I need for you to be extremely honest in the comments when answering them. And to be honest with you, I don't have any questions, but I do have 2 tasks that I want you to do. Please give me your honest opinion on this tribute. That's 1. And number 2, tell me your thoughts about Esther Rolle, the actress and the person. Now please be honest when doing these tasks. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. Oh, and I will try to find those books and put them in the description box below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.